Pay up, or you won't see your grandchildren anymore. My daughter-in-law Chloe said it like she was ordering coffee. Cold, casual. My son David just watched. They thought I was a lonely old man, easily broken, living quietly on a small pension. They were about to learn that this old contractor doesn't just build foundations. I demolish them too. If this story finds you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. My name is Thomas. For 40 years, I laid brick and mortar. I built houses. I made sure things were solid, secure, built to last. I always thought I had built my family the same way, but foundations crack, and sometimes the cracks start from the inside. I still live in the house Martha and I bought 30 years ago. It's simple. The walls know my secrets. My old Ford pickup truck sits in the driveway, rusted around the edges. My clothes are practical. Flannel shirts, worn jeans. My old Ford pickup truck sits in the driveway, rusted around the edges. My clothes are practical. Flannel shirts, worn jeans. If you looked at me, you'd see a retired contractor. What you wouldn't see was the $15 million. It wasn't luck. It was a risk. 15 years ago, I sold my business. I took the payout and invested it all in my friend Alex. He was a genius, launching a tech startup. I believed in him. I never expected to see the money again. But the company exploded. It went global, and I kept the secret. I never told David, my son. Only Martha knew. My wife, God rest her soul. The money felt heavy, a burden as much as a blessing. Martha passed 2 years ago. Cancer took her fast. I remember her hand in mine at the hospital, frail, thin. The machines beeped softly around us. Her eyes were fixed on a picture of David. "Don't let the money ruin him, Thomas," she whispered. Her voice was weak, but her grip was strong. "Wealth should be a tool, not a trap." She squeezed my hand one last time. "Protect him from it. Protect him from himself." I promised, Martha. I intended to keep that promise. But promises are fragile things, especially when they collide with someone like Chloe. Chloe was David's wife of 5 years. Polished, ambitious, driven by a hunger that nothing satisfied. She always needed more. A bigger car, designer clothes, vacations that strained David's project manager's salary to the breaking point. The tension between them was a constant hum. Chloe saw my simple life not as a choice, but as a failure. A lack of ambition. She was desperate. This for a void. She blamed me for not helping them more. She didn't know the truth, and I couldn't tell her, because money in Chloe's hands, that would be gasoline on a fire. It was Christmas Day. The house smelled like roasted turkey, cinnamon, and pine. The smell of decades of Christmases with Martha. My grandchildren, Emma and Liam, 6 and 4, were playing in the living room. They were the light of my life, the only pure joy I had left. Emma was carefully arranging the wooden train set I had built. Liam was crashing the engine into a pile of wrapping paper. Laughter echoed down the hall. It should have been perfect, but the air in the dining room felt thin, stretched tight, brittle. Chloe sat at the table, swirling the wine in her glass. She wore a new dress, red silk. It looked far too expensive. Her expression was sour. "I just don't understand," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the distant sound of the children's laughter. "Sarah and Mike are going to Aspen."
"Aspen, David, and we're stuck here."
David sighed. He looked exhausted. The circles under his eyes were dark bruises. He rubbed his temples. "Chloe, we talked about this," he said, his voice low, tired. "They have different jobs, different circumstances. Different circumstances." Chloe scoffed. She set her glass down hard. Wine sloshed onto the white tablecloth. She glanced at me. It was a familiar jab, a calculated strike, or just a more supportive family. I focused on carving the turkey. My hands were steady, practiced. I didn't look up. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. "Keep quiet, Thomas. Don't engage. It must be nice, Thomas," Chloe continued, pushing her point. Her voice dripped with contempt. "To have such simple needs. Your little pension covers everything, doesn't it?" "It does," I said quietly. My knife slid through the meat. "I don't need much." "Well, we do," she snapped. She stood up, pacing the small dining room. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. The kids are getting older. They need better schools. We need a bigger house. A better neighborhood. She stopped pacing and faced David. David deserves a car that doesn't break down every other month, she declared. It's frankly embarrassing how stagnant we are. That's enough, Chloe, David warned. His voice was tight. A muscle twitched in his jaw. He was reaching his limit. The tension was rising, suffocating the holiday cheer. I wanted to tell them they didn't need to worry, that their future was secure. But I remembered Martha's warning. Protect him. I saw the greed in Chloe's eyes. Sharp, calculating. The truth would destroy them. I thought the silence was the worst sound. I was wrong. Then the doorbell rang. It was unusual. Nobody visited on Christmas Day. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to answer it. Standing on the porch, looking cold and apologetic, was Mr.
Harrison.
Richard Harrison. My lawyer, my financial advisor. The only other person alive who knew the truth. He was the architect of the structure Martha and I had built to protect the money. He was holding a thick manila envelope. My blood ran cold. This was dangerous. Thomas, I am so incredibly sorry to disturb you today, Harrison said, his breath fogging in the cold air. But you needed to sign these year-end transfers before the 31st for the trust. I'm flying out tomorrow. I tried calling, but it went to voicemail. It's all right, Richard, don't worry about it, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I reached for the envelope. Come in, warm up. No, I won't intrude. Just take these. He handed me the envelope. It felt heavy in my hands. A bomb in a manila casing. At that moment, little Liam, chasing Emma, ran up behind me. Grandpa, look! He crashed into my legs. I stumbled. I fumbled the envelope. The clasp popped open. The papers inside slid halfway out. My heart pounded. I quickly shoved them back in. I saw the header on the top page. Maplewood Trust. Year-end statement. The numbers. Bold, undeniable. Goodbye, Richard. Merry Christmas, I said quickly, rushing him off the porch. I closed the door. The silence in the hallway was heavy. Did anyone see? I didn't think so. But the papers were here, in the open. I needed a secure place for the documents. My home office was locked. The key was upstairs in my bedroom. I couldn't take the papers up with David and Chloe watching. It would raise too many questions. I could hear them arguing in the kitchen now. Hushed, angry tones. I'll be right back, I called out. Just need to grab the cranberry sauce from the pantry. I placed the envelope on the narrow hall table, tucked behind a stack of mail. Just for a second, it was a mistake. A small, simple mistake that would unravel everything. I went into the pantry. I rattled cans. I leaned my forehead against the cool metal shelf. I tried to compose myself. My hands were shaking. Stupid, Thomas. Stupid. I wasn't gone for more than 2 minutes. When I came back out, the envelope was still on the table, but something felt wrong. It looked slightly bent. The clasp wasn't quite closed the way I had left it. A chill colder than the winter air swept through the house. I walked back into the dining room. The turkey sat on the platter, steaming. David was pouring himself a glass of water, his back to me. Chloe was sitting at the table. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide and glittering. She was staring at me. It wasn't the look of mild annoyance she usually wore. It was something sharp, something predatory, something hungry. She had looked inside. I knew it instantly. Is everything all right? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The pit of my stomach tightened. Chloe didn't answer right away. She took a long, slow sip of wine. Then she smiled. A cold, chilling smile that didn't reach her eyes. David, she said, her voice suddenly sweet as poison. We need to talk about your father's pension. David turned around, confused, relieved, perhaps, that the argument was shifting away from him. What about it? And then she spoke the words that would burn my world to the ground. Chloe leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine. The predator had found its prey. Did you know your father is a liar? David's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Water dripped onto the floor. Chloe, what are you saying? He exclaimed, shocked. Apologize right now. I'm saying, she stood up, her voice rising with every word. The excitement was vibrating off her. That while we've been struggling, begging for scraps, worrying ourselves sick about the future, she paused, looking around the simple dining room with disgust. Your saintly father has been hiding something. Something big. The secret I had protected for 15 years. The promise I made to Martha. It was exploding. Thomas, she said, her voice dripping with accusation and triumph. Why don't you tell David about the Maplewood Trust? David stared at me, bewildered. Maplewood Trust? Dad, what is she talking about? I took a deep breath. The foundation was cracking. There was no hiding it now. It's complicated, David. Oh, I bet it is. Chloe laughed, a harsh grating sound that echoed in the small room. But the bottom line is very simple. I saw the statement, Thomas. I saw the numbers. She paused for dramatic effect, ensuring the moment landed with maximum impact. $15 million, she screamed. The words hit the air like physical blows. David, your father has $15 million. The room went silent. The only sound was the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. It felt impossibly loud. The Christmas cheer was dead, replaced by something cold and ugly. David stared at me, his face slack with disbelief. His eyes searched mine for a denial that wouldn't come. Emma and Liam stopped playing in the living room. They peeked around the doorway, frightened by the sudden violence in their mother's voice. Dad? David whispered. His voice was trembling. Raw. Is that true? 15 million? I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the man I loved more than anything. I nodded slowly. Yes, David, it's true. David sank back into his chair as if he'd been punched. He put his head in his hands. He didn't move for a long time. The silence stretched. 15 million? He finally said, his voice muffled. But how? Why didn't you tell me? All this time, all this stress. I was going to, I said, my voice heavy with regret. I wanted you to make your own way, to understand the value of what you earned. Without the shadow of this money hanging over you, your mother and I, Chloe cut me off. Her voice was sharp, energized. The shock had worn off, replaced by adrenaline. Oh, spare us the noble speeches, Thomas. She paced the room again, her energy manic. You lied. You watched us struggle. She stopped, pointing a perfectly manicured finger at me. You watched your son work himself to the bone, day after day, worrying about bills, the kid's future, while you sat on a fortune and judged us for wanting a better life. I never wanted you to struggle, I insisted. I felt cornered in my own home, the walls closing in. I was protecting you. Money like this, it changes people. It destroys them if they aren't ready. Protecting us or controlling us. Chloe stepped closer to me. Her face was contorted with rage, and a terrifying sense of victory. Well, the game is over, Thomas. The control is gone. She smiled. That cold smile again. It's time to pay up. David finally looked up. His expression was a mixture of shock and something else. Something that scared me. Hope. The hope of an easy escape from his burdens. Chloe, calm down, he said, but his voice was weak. Unsure. Let's just talk about this. We need to understand. Talk. There's nothing left to talk about. Chloe spun around to face him, then turned back to me, her eyes blazing. I want the money, Thomas. All of it. Now. I stared at her, stunned by the sheer audacity. The immediate pivot from discovery to demand. Chloe, that money is for David's long-term future, I said, trying to stay calm, trying to reason with the unreasonable. For the children's education, for security, I am their future, she shrieked. Her voice reached a fever pitch. The mask was off, the raw greed exposed. I am the one raising them. I am the one who has sacrificed everything for this family. She jabbed her finger at my chest. I didn't move. Frankly, Thomas, I deserve it more than anyone. I've put up with your judgment, your cheapness, your condescending attitude for years. She leaned in close. I could smell the wine on her breath. I married into this family expecting stability, and all I got was mediocrity. Not anymore. I'm taking what's mine. Deserve. The word hung in the air. Naked and ugly. She felt she deserved the fruits of my labor, my risk, the legacy Martha and I had carefully planned. It doesn't work like that, Chloe, I said. I needed to maintain control, to remember the plan Martha and I had made. The fortress we had built, the money is in a trust. It's structured. It's not just sitting in a checking account. I don't care how it's structured, she yelled, waving her hand dismissively. You are the trustee. You can dissolve it, and you will. Her plan was clear, brutal, simple. Tomorrow morning, we are going to the bank, and you will transfer every last cent to our joint account. We will handle the children's future. I looked at David. I needed him to step up, to see the madness of what Chloe was demanding, to see the person she truly was. David, I prompted, my voice pleading. He looked up, his eyes filled with conflict. He was overwhelmed, tempted. Dad, 15 million, he trailed off. He looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time. That changes everything. Chloe is right. We could have used that help. A down payment, the kids' school fees. He looked at me, accusation in his eyes now. Why hide it? Why let us suffer? The sting of his words hurt more than Chloe's screaming. He was siding with her. The money had already started its corrosive work, poisoning his mind, twisting his perception of the past. I understand you're upset, David, I said, keeping my voice level. But demanding I hand over a lifetime of savings right now is unreasonable. We need to plan this carefully. Unreasonable? Chloe scoffed. What's unreasonable is a millionaire pretending to be poor while his family drowns in debt. The argument raged for hours. The turkey grew cold on the table. The children retreated to the far corner of the living room, their laughter replaced by fearful silence. Chloe was relentless, fueled by the scent of money. She started making plans out loud. The gated community across town. The big one with the pool, a Porsche Cayenne. Black, and we're going to Paris. First class. She was already spending the money. Consuming it, destroying it. David tried to mediate, but Chloe steamrolled him. He was weak, caught between the wife he feared and the father he thought he knew. By the time they left that night, the house felt cold and empty. The Christmas lights twinkled mockingly in the darkness. I sat alone in the silence. The weight of the secret was gone, replaced by the heavier, sharper weight of the confrontation. Christmas Day had shattered, and I feared my family had shattered with it. I looked at the picture of Martha on the mantel. I'm trying. Martha? But I'm losing him. The next few days were a nightmare. A slow descent into a darkness I hadn't known since Martha died. Chloe launched a full-scale assault, a siege on my life and my sanity. The calls started the next morning. Boxing Day, I was barely out of bed. Chloe didn't bother with pleasantries. We're expecting the transfer today, Thomas, she said. Her voice was cold, businesslike. I've already contacted a real estate agent. There's a house we want to put an offer on. It's stunning. Everything we deserve. Chloe, I told you, it's not that simple, I said, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. The exhaustion was already settling deep in my bones. The trust has rules. I can't just dissolve it. Then break the rules, she shouted. The phone crackled with her anger. It's your trust, isn't it? Stop hiding behind technicalities and do the right thing for your son. She paused, her tone shifting suddenly. Manipulative, syrupy sweet. Don't you want him to be happy, Thomas? Don't you want your grandchildren to have the best? She hung up before I could answer. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. The siege had begun, but I didn't yet understand how desperate Chloe truly was. An hour later, David called. He sounded terrible. His voice was tight, frantic. Dad, please. He didn't even say hello. You have to give her something. She's out of control. What do you mean out of control? She's already maxed out our credit cards, anticipating the money. She bought a new car yesterday, a Mercedes. My blood pressure spiked. David, that's madness. You need to stop her. I can't stop her, Dad, he yelled, and it's worse than that. He hesitated. I heard him take a shaky breath. The sound was ragged. Fearful. There's this guy, David whispered, as if afraid someone might hear him. Sterling. Who is Sterling? I asked, confused. A new player. This was getting complicated. I don't know. Some kind of investor. From her old life. David's voice dropped lower. Chloe owes him money, Dad, a lot of money. From before we met. He found her. He paused. The next words chilled me to the bone. He's making threats. Serious threats. Suddenly, Chloe's desperation made sense. It wasn't just greed. It was fear. She wasn't just shopping. She was trying to pay off a shadow from her past. A dangerous shadow. She says if we don't get the funds today, Sterling is going to hurt her. David pleaded. The desperation was raw in his voice. Please, just give us $1 million, just $1 million, to pay him off, to make him go away. We can figure out the rest later. My son was begging, not for a mansion, but for his wife's safety. It complicated everything. But I knew the trap. I knew how men like Sterling operated. If he smelled 15 million, 1 million wouldn't make him go away. It would make him dig in deeper. It would put a target on all our backs. David, I said, my voice firm. I had to be strong for him. If I give her $1 million now, it will be gone, and this Sterling will demand the rest. We need to handle this the right way. Does he know about the trust?
I don't know, Dad. I can't think. There's no room to breathe. Chloe won't let me. I will not enable this, David, I said, hardening my resolve. I will not let her, or this Sterling, destroy you. He cursed, a sound I hadn't heard from him since he was a teenager, and hung up. The silence on the other end of the line was louder than any scream. I had drawn a line in the sand, but the threats were escalating, and Chloe was adapting. She knew she couldn't break me with demands or threats from shadows, so she started working on the edges, isolating me, destroying my credibility. The smear campaign started subtly. My neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, cornered me while I was taking out the trash. She was a sharp woman, always watching the street. The neighborhood gossip. Thomas, dear, are you all right? She asked, leaning over the fence. Her eyes were narrowed, searching. I'm fine, Mrs. Peterson. Why do you ask? Well, your daughter-in-law stopped by yesterday, Mrs. Peterson said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. She seemed very concerned. She said, you've been confused lately. I froze. Confused. She mentioned you were having trouble with your finances, she continued, enjoying the drama. Forgetting bills, hiding money in the house, and then forgetting where you put it. A chill ran down my spine. I saw what Chloe was doing. It was brilliant and cruel. She was laying the groundwork, painting a picture of an old man losing his grip on reality, incapable of managing his affairs. If I couldn't manage my affairs, I couldn't be the trustee. They could petition the court for control. She asked me to keep an eye on you, Mrs. Peterson added. Said you were very agitated on Christmas. Paranoid. Angry. I'm fine, Mrs. Peterson, I said firmly, trying to keep the anger out of my voice. Chloe is mistaken. Well, she seemed very sincere, Thomas, Mrs. Peterson insisted, doubt clouding her eyes. Maybe a checkup wouldn't hurt. The seed of doubt had been planted. The smear campaign was working. They weren't just trying to take the money. They were trying to take my reputation, my autonomy. I felt utterly alone, defeated. The walls of my own neighborhood were turning against me. If this story has you hooked, please hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and lets me know these stories matter, because what happened next was the blow that nearly broke me. It was Saturday afternoon. I was supposed to take Emma and Liam to the park. I missed them terribly. Their laughter, their hugs. I arrived at their house, gifts in hand, a new puzzle for Emma, a toy truck for Liam. My heart ached with anticipation. I rang the doorbell. The sound echoed inside the house. Chloe met me at the door. She didn't open it all the way. She blocked the entrance with her body. Her expression was cold and hostile. They're busy, she said flatly. Chloe, we planned this. It's my day with them. I could hear them inside, the sound of a cartoon playing. Liam, Emma, Grandpa's here. I called out. They're not going with you, she said. Her eyes were flat, dead. What are you talking about? I asked, confused. The dread pooling in my stomach. I don't think it's safe. Safe. The word hit me like a slap.
I am their grandfather. Your behavior, Thomas. It's erratic. You're unstable. She said the words calmly, clinically, rehearsed. Hiding millions of dollars, denying your own family, flying into rages. I don't want my children around that kind of influence. She paused, letting the insult sink in. You're toxic. She was using my grandchildren as leverage. Blackmail, pure and simple. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. You can't do this, Chloe, I whispered. The pain tightened around my chest like a vice. I couldn't breathe. They are my grandchildren. You can't use them as weapons. They are my children, she retorted. Her voice dripped with venom, and I decide what's best for them. This was the ultimatum, the moment everything crystallized. If you want to see them, you know what you have to do. Sign the papers, dissolve the trust. Until then, stay away from us. She closed the door in my face. I stood on the porch, paralyzed. The gifts felt heavy in my hands. I heard Liam crying inside, calling my name. Grandpa? Where's Grandpa? The sound of his voice shattered me. I walked back my truck. My hands were shaking. Tears blurred my vision. I sat in the empty cab, surrounded by the ghosts of happier times. And I wept. I wept for my son. I wept for my grandchildren. I wept for the family I had lost. I needed help. I needed someone who understood. Someone Martha trusted. I called Martha's sister, my sister-in-law, Clara. Clara was a strong woman. No nonsense. A retired school principal. She had always been suspicious of Chloe. Thomas, what's wrong? You sound terrible, Clara said, her voice sharp with concern. I told her everything. The money, the trust, Chloe's demands, the grandchildren, the man named Sterling. Clara listened silently. When I finished, there was a long pause. Martha knew, Clara said finally, her voice tight with anger. She knew Chloe was trouble. She told me she was worried about David, that Chloe had secrets, that she was bleeding him dry. Did Martha know about the money? I asked. No, but she told me you two had a plan, Clara said. A way to protect David if things went south. Thomas, you cannot give in to her. You cannot let her win. Martha would never forgive you. Clara's words were a lifeline, a reminder of the promise I made, a jolt of strength. I won't, Clara. But they are trying to paint me as incompetent. They are trying to take control of the trust. Then you fight back, Thomas, Clara insisted. Her voice was steel. You fight for your son. You fight for those children. You fight for Martha's legacy. I realized I was in a fight for my life. It was time to stop playing defense. I called Harrison. Richard, it's time, I said. My voice was stronger now, fueled by Clara's support. What's the situation, Thomas? They're escalating. Chloe has debts. A man named Sterling is threatening her. And she's keeping the children from me. She's spreading rumors that I'm losing my mind. I took a deep breath. David is going along with it. He's paralyzed by fear. Harrison sighed. It was a heavy sound. The Sterling element is dangerous, he said. It makes her desperate, and desperate people are ruthless. I'll look into this, Mr. Sterling. We need to know who we are dealing with. What do we do now? Now, Harrison said, his voice hardening, we show them what the trust really means. Time to reveal the foundations. Martha and I built. They think the trust is just a simple holding account, Harrison continued, that you can dissolve it at will. He chuckled darkly. They don't understand the structure. They don't understand the protections we put in place. This was the twist, the secret weapon Martha and I had crafted years ago. We knew the dangers of sudden wealth, so we built a fortress around the money. It's time they learned the truth, Harrison said, his voice firm. We need to arrange a meeting, a formal mediation. All of us. A mediation. A showdown. It was time to show them what solid foundations really look like. We met in the conference room at Harrison's office, a week later. The room was sterile, imposing, glass walls, expensive leather chairs. The air was thick with tension. It smelled of expensive coffee and fear. I arrived first with Harrison. Clara sat beside me, a silent pillar of strength. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was firm. Harrison placed a thick, leather-bound folder on the table. The fortress. We found Sterling, Harrison whispered to me, before the others arrived. He's bad news, Thomas. A loan shark, with a record. Chloe owes him over 200,000. Interest is burying her. He looked grim. He knows about the trust rumor. He's waiting for his payday. He's the pressure point. The stakes were higher than I thought. This wasn't just about greed anymore, it was about survival. Chloe walked in as if she already owned the building, dressed in a new designer suit. White, sharp, a smug smile plastered on her face. She was confident, certain of her victory. She had hired a lawyer, Mr. Evans, high-powered, aggressive, a shark in an expensive suit. David followed behind her. He looked pale, haggard, utterly broken. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He sat as far away from me as possible. The distance hurt more than any insult. "All right, let's get this over with," Chloe announced, taking a seat at the head of the table, ignoring the mediator. "I have a busy day. We're here to finalize the transfer of the assets. I have the account details ready." She slid a piece of paper across the table towards Harrison. Mr. Evans opened his briefcase. His shark-like smile gleamed. He adjusted his cuffs. "We understand the Maplewood Trust is valued at approximately $15 million, Evans began, his voice smooth and oily. "My client, Mrs. Chloe Gable, and her husband, Mr. David Gable, are requesting immediate dissolution of the trust." Evans paused, looking at me with disdain. Given Miss Thomas Gable's advanced age, he continued, and the documented concerns regarding his mental acuity and ability to manage such a large sum, this is the most responsible course of action. He slid a document across the table, a petition for dissolution. I looked at the signatures at the bottom. Chloe's signature, sharp and aggressive, and next to it, devastatingly, David's, my own son, signing away my life's work, believing the lies. My hands trembled under the table. Clara reached over and squeezed my arm. I kept my face impassive. "They think they've already won." Harrison leaned back in his chair. Calm, composed. He looked at Mr. Evans with a mild expression of pity. "Mr. Evans," Harrison said, his voice quiet but firm, "I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding regarding the nature of the Maplewood Trust." "What misunderstanding?" Chloe snapped. Her impatience was bubbling to the surface. "It's David's inheritance. Thomas is the trustee. He just needs to sign the papers." "Stop stalling. That is not entirely accurate," Harrison said. He opened the leather-bound folder, the trust documents, the fortress walls.
"The Maplewood Trust is not a simple revocable trust," Harrison explained. "It is an irrevocable discretionary trust, established 15 years ago by Thomas and his late wife, Martha." "Irrevocable? Discretionary?" David asked, speaking for the first time. His voice was hollow, confused. "It means," Harrison said, looking directly at David, "it cannot be changed or dissolved by the trustee or the beneficiaries. Thomas is the primary trustee, but his role is to execute the terms of the trust exactly as written." Harrison turned his gaze to Chloe. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He has no legal power to simply hand over the money. Even if he wanted to, the terms are very specific, Harrison continued, his voice hardening, designed by Martha and Thomas to protect the legacy from exactly this kind of situation from external creditors. He let the last part hang in the air. A direct shock. Chloe flinched. A flicker of panic crossed her face. "She knew we knew about Sterling," Chloe laughed. A brittle, nervous sound. "Specifics don't matter. It's our money. We'll deal with the specifics later. Just transfer the funds. Let's review the terms, shall we?" Harrison started reading from the document. This was the moment, the protection, the solid foundation Martha and I had put in place all those years ago. The primary beneficiaries are David, Emma, and Liam. Harrison continued. However, the distribution of funds is strictly controlled and conditional upon the beneficiaries demonstrating financial responsibility and moral character. He looked up, making eye contact with everyone in the room. Condition 1, Harrison read. Funds may be released for legitimate educational expenses for the grandchildren. Tuition, books, room, and board. All payments made directly to the institutions. He paused. No personal allowances. No extravagant private schools.
Chloe frowned. Realization was dawning on her. The color started to drain from her face. Okay, that's fine, she said quickly, trying to recover. What about the rest of the money? What about David and me? What about my obligations? Condition 2, Harrison continued, ignoring her question. Funds may be released for critical medical emergencies. Payments made directly to the providers. He paused, looking directly at David. Condition 3. Concerns David specifically. He can request funds for a down payment on a primary residence. Chloe leaned forward, hope flickering in her eyes. But, Harrison continued, snapping the trap shut, the trust will only match what he provides from his own savings, dollar for dollar, up to a maximum value determined by the average home price in this area. No mansions, no luxury properties. It encourages saving, not spending. Chloe's face turned a mottled red. Her eyes bulged with suppressed rage. She realized the trap she had walked into. The money was there, $15 million, but it was completely out of her reach. Sterling would not be paid. The terror of that realization mixed with her fury. That's ridiculous, she shrieked, her composure cracking. That's controlling. That's insane. She looked at Evans, panicked. Do something? What about the remaining 12 or 13 million? Evans demanded, his voice losing its oily smoothness. When did they get that? Harrison closed the folder softly. The sound echoed in the silent room like a gunshot. It remains in the trust, he said, invested and growing, until the grandchildren reach the age of 30. At that point, they inherit the principal, provided they meet the trust criteria. He looked at David. David receives a modest monthly stipend, enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly, starting only upon his retirement at age 65. The truth was revealed. The money wasn't a jackpot. It was a safety net, a legacy, carefully woven to prevent exactly the kind of greed and desperation Chloe was displaying. It was designed to encourage hard work and integrity, the values Martha and I cherished. Chloe stared at Harrison, then at me. Her smugness evaporated, replaced by pure, unadulterated fury. You did this on purpose, she screamed, leaping to her feet. She slammed her hand on the table so hard that the water glasses rattled. You tied it all up so we couldn't touch it. You manipulative, selfish old man. You planned this all along. We tied it up so it wouldn't be wasted, I said quietly. My voice was steady, strengthened by the realization that our plan had worked, that Martha's foresight had saved us, so that your children would have a secure future, free from the corruption of sudden wealth, and free from your past. You wanted to control us, she spat, venom dripping from every word, to keep us edged, to force us to live like you in this miserable, mediocre existence. This is unacceptable, Mr. Evans interrupted, trying to regain control. His massive payday was gone. We can challenge this in court. We can argue that the terms are overly restrictive. You can try, Harrison said calmly, unfazed. But the trust is ironclad. It has been tested and upheld. It was designed specifically to protect the assets from frivolous spending, divorce claims, predatory behavior, and aggressive creditors. He glanced pointedly at Chloe. You have no case, and Mr. Sterling has no claim. Chloe turned to David. Her eyes were wild, desperate. David, say something. Don't let them do this to us. Fight for us. Fight for your family. Don't let him win. David looked at me. For the first time in weeks, he really looked at me. I saw the confusion clearing from his eyes, replaced by a glimmer of understanding. He remembered his mother, her values. He saw the prison he had been living in. He understood why she had been so desperate, the lies she had told him, too. David, Chloe hissed, her voice low and menacing. We need that money. I deserve that money. You know what happens if I don't get it? Deserve. The word hung in the air again. The climax wasn't just about the money. It was about David's soul. Chloe realized she was losing control. The money was out of her reach. In a final, desperate act of mutually assured destruction, she decided to play her trump card. Fine, she said. Her voice was low and dangerous. The mask was completely gone, revealing the ugliness underneath. If I can't have the money, then I want out. She looked directly at David. We are going to sue your father, David. she commanded. "We're going to fight this trust with everything we have, even if it drains every cent we have in legal fees." She paused, letting the ultimate threat sink in. "Or," she said, her voice shaking with rage, "I am divorcing you, and I will take the kids. I will fight for full custody, and I will make sure they hate you. You will lose everything. Choose." Now, it was the ultimate betrayal. She was willing to destroy her family, to tear her children away from their father. All for money she couldn't access. The room was electric with tension. All eyes were on David. He looked broken, trapped, the weight of the impossible choice pressing down on him. This was the moment that would define the rest of his life. He looked at Chloe, his wife. He saw the greed and the fear that had twisted her features into an ugly mask. Then he looked at me, his father. He took a deep breath and stood up. "Chloe," he said. His voice was trembling but clear, stronger than I had heard it in years. "I'm done." "Done with what?" she snapped. "Sign the papers to sue him, David. Don't be weak. Don't be pathetic like him." "No," David said, shaking his head. "I'm done with this. With the greed, with the debts, with the constant demands, with the entitlement." He looked at me. Tears welled in his eyes. Dad was right. Mom was right. They were right all along. They were trying to protect me. He turned back to Chloe. His expression hardened. "The money stays where it is. It's for Emma and Liam. Not for your shopping sprees. Not for Mr. Sterling. Not for a life we didn't earn." Chloe stared at him, stunned into silence. She couldn't believe he was defying her. The control she held over him had shattered. "David, you are making a huge mistake," she threatened, her voice shaking with rage. "If you don't fight for this money, I will leave. I swear to God I will leave you, and you will never see your children again." "Then leave," David said. His voice gained strength. His posture straightened. "If money is all you care about, if that's all our marriage was about, then go. I will not let you destroy my family." Chloe's face contorted with a final spasm of rage. She let out a strangled scream. She grabbed her purse and stormed out of the room. She slammed the door behind her with such force that the glass rattled. Mr. Evans, looking embarrassed and defeated, quickly packed his briefcase and hurried after her. The silence that followed was heavy, but peaceful. David stood at the table, shaking uncontrollably. I walked over to him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Clara put her hand on his other shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Dad," he whispered. The tears finally fell, the grief and shame overwhelming him. I didn't see it. I didn't see how bad it had become. I was so weak. I almost betrayed you. "It's all right, son," I said, pulling him into a hug, holding him tightly. "You weren't weak. You were lost. But you found your way back." I held my son, and for the first time in years I felt the foundation beneath us settle. Solid, secure. "We'll get through this," I promised. Together. The fallout was messy and painful. Chloe followed through on her threat. She filed for divorce, and it was bitter. She tried to paint David as an unfit father, fueled by vengeance. Mr. Sterling didn't make things easier. He harassed Chloe, and when he realized she couldn't pay, he started circling David, looking for leverage. But David fought back. He was stronger now, clearer, his purpose renewed. He was the man Martha and I had raised. I sat with him in Harrison's office during the custody battle. The legal fees were mounting. Chloe was relentless, trying to bankrupt him so he couldn't fight for the kids. "I need help, Dad," he said, his voice heavy with worry. "I can't afford this fight on my own. We'll handle it." I said. I looked at Harrison. "Can the trust help with this?" Harrison nodded. A small smile played on his lips. "Absolutely. Protecting the well-being of the beneficiaries is part of the mandate. We can use the trust funds to ensure David has proper legal representation and that the children's best interests are secured." He leaned forward. The trust was designed to protect the family from threats, both internal and external. Harrison also handled Mr. Sterling. He didn't use the trust money. He used the law. He made it clear that the trust was untouchable by any creditor, and that any further harassment of David or the children would be met with restraining orders and criminal charges. Sterling, realizing the well was dry and the risk was too high, disappeared back into the shadows. Chloe was on her own. The money Martha and I had saved was finally being used for what truly mattered. Protecting our family, securing the foundation. In the end, David got primary custody. Chloe, facing her own mounting debts and realizing she had no leverage left, eventually conceded. She got a modest settlement from their shared assets. The house, the cars, the things she had accumulated. But she never touched a dime of the trust. She moved away, bitter and angry, convinced she had been robbed of a fortune she believed she deserved. The years that followed were quiet, a time of healing and rebuilding. David and the kids moved in with me for a while. Clara visited often, becoming a second grandmother to the children. The house, once silent and filled with ghosts, was alive again. The sounds of laughter and life. We healed, slowly. We rebuilt the foundations that had been cracked by greed and betrayal. David focused on his work, earning his promotions, saving his money, the right way. He started saving for a down payment on a small house nearby, and the trust matched him, dollar for dollar, just as we planned. One evening, years later, David and I were sitting on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Emma and Liam were inside, studying for their college exams. The trust was paying their tuition at the universities they had earned their way into. They were thriving, grounded. They understood the value of hard work. "You know, Dad," David said, staring out at the sunset. His voice was reflective. "I used to be angry that you hid the money. I thought you didn't trust me. I thought it was selfish. I understand, David. I worried about that every day. But now I see," he continued, turning to look at me. His eyes were clear and honest. "If Chloe had gotten her hands on it, everything would be gone. The kids' future, my soul. It would have destroyed us." He paused, gratitude shining in his eyes. "The way you and Mom structured that trust, it wasn't control, it was protection. You didn't just save the money, Dad. You saved me." Tears welled in my eyes. I looked at my son, the man he had become, strong, resilient, a man of integrity. It hadn't been easy. The betrayal, the confrontation, the pain, it had all been worth it. I went inside and looked at the picture of Martha on the mantelpiece. Her smile was warm and gentle, her eyes full of wisdom. "I kept my promise, Martha," I whispered, touching the glass. "He's safe. The money didn't ruin him. It made him stronger. Wealth isn't about how much you have. It's about what you build with. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children is the strength to realize that the things truly worth having can never be bought, and they certainly can never be deserved without effort." Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe.